Thank everyone today for coming to our rally and to support single parents. We've got a couple of groups here. We've got Council of Single Mothers, United Sole Parents of Australia, Single Parent Action Group, and we've got Kate Boland, who's from Public Housing. She's a candidate to support public housing. We've got Sue Bolton from Social Alliance Party, and any mums and dads that would like to speak for us today. We've just basically come here today to let the politicians know that single parents need the support so that we can be home for our children, so that we can have the ability to work part-time if we want, so that we can then be able to pick up our children after school and take them to school and be there to be looking after them instead of them to look after themselves and just run amok and basically grow up on their own. So basically what I wanted to say is that single parents have a hard time juggling their commitments with studying and work, and also for carers. And we need flexible working conditions, so we want our politicians to encourage businesses to have flexible working conditions so that we can work part-time, we can job share and the likes of that. A lot of single parents struggle with depression, anxiety, and even thoughts of suicide since these cuts have come in. We need the government to reverse these changes, because living like this is really hard and it's affecting the children. The children are becoming anxious, the children are also becoming depressed, and it's affecting their schoolwork, and it's not going to benefit us as a country if our children can't even go to school and be able to concentrate because their parents are too stressed. I'd also like to have a word about the controlled income management. That's a really bad idea that the government wants to bring in for welfare recipients. We don't need income management. We can budget ourselves. If the government gave us money that we could actually budget with, it would help. So no to income management. It's demoralising, and we need the support to actually help those people that do, take drugs and alcohol instead of buying food. We need that drug and alcohol education classes for these people. We need to give them hope. We need to be able to build these people up. They're a minority in our society, but they're vulnerable people that need our support, not to be just put down and kicked in the guts, which is what the government's trying to do. Also with the bedroom taxes that the state government's wanting to bring in, it's another bad idea. The people that have been living in those homes have built up the support network that they've had around them, and to rip them out from that support and put them somewhere into isolation where they don't know anyone is going to also create more depression and anxiety. It's something that we need to work out other ideas. Cheaper housing, which Kate Boland will be able to talk to you about with public housing a lot better than what I can. So basically the government needs to provide more affordable housing for single parents. On Newstart and parenting payment, there's only 1%, less than 1% housing affordability in Australia. Single parents are paying over 30% of their income just on rent, and to be able to survive on the little income that you have is just really hard, and it's unmanageable. So basically I'm just here to also introduce Bianca, because she's got to run off soon. She's from Single Parent Action Group, and she's also going to tell of the effects of what she's been hearing in herself. So thank you, Bianca.
Thanks, Terry. Hi, my name's Bianca, and I'm the National Spokesperson for Single Parents Action Group. I am 29, I am a proud mum of boisterous and loving 8-year-old twins. I am their safe place, their love, and their only parent. One of my little boys requires a lot of me, as together we meet the challenges of Asperger's. The boy's father lives overseas, and in a country where he does not have to pay child support, it's all up to me. To build a bright and secure future, I was studying law and picking up casual contract work when available. I was supported by a supplemental supportive income called single parent payment. This all came to a crashing halt when I was shoved onto New Start. The controversial cost-cutting measure was announced by then the Labor government as the way of saving $700 million over 4 years. The thing that really gets to me is that only $126 million was raised in mining tax since the cuts were made at the commencement of the year, compared to $207 million raised from destroying the lives of many single parents out there doing it tough. Why is Labor taking more money from single parents than from big mining through the mining tax? On New Start, you struggle. I lost $158 per week from benefits when my boys turned 8, 21 days after the cuts were rolled out nationwide. As a result, I was forced to give up study. The boys had to quit singing in the National Boys Choir. They now hide excursion forms because they know how much stress this places on me. No child should be robbed of their educational experience. I cycle in and out of contract work with no sick pay, no holiday leave. When work seizes up, we do it tough. I have survived 2 eviction notices in the last 8 months because of donations from friends and family. I'm terrified of the future when my current work contract ends at the end of September, and I'm afraid that we may face eviction again, and this time we may not come out on top. In January, even Kevin Rudd, then a mere backbencher, urged Julia Gillard's cabinet to show a bit of heart and increase New Start. More recently, with him back in the Prime Ministerial hot seat, Mr Rudd's spokeswoman would say that he was discussing the issue with his colleagues. Now with the government in caretaker mode, no one is saying anything. There is no hope for a Labor or Liberal government. What's distressing is that Mr Rudd grew up in a sole parent household. I ask Mr Rudd now to show a bit of heart, just like he has asked Julia Gillard. The Labor government promoted the scheme as a way of encouraging parents back to work. But what I do know is that 69% of those affected were already in paid employment and working in some form of capacity. From managing a Single Parents Action Group online forum, I get personal messages from people telling me they want to give up on life and kill themselves because they feel inadequate and unable to support their kids. I have to direct them to appropriate support services. It's very distressing to listen to these stories from these people. I get messages and phone calls to this effect on a fortnightly basis from people seeking help from friends who are sleeping in cars, or about parents who have turned to prostitution because of these cuts. It is undeniable that homelessness is a growing problem in this country. On any given night, more than 105,000 Australians are homeless. That is 1 in every 200 people. According to the last census, 6,813 of these people were sleeping on the streets. Many thousands were forced to couch surf, live in severely overcrowded housing, and lack personal space and security. More than a quarter of our homeless population are children under the age of 18. On census night, almost 18,000 children under 12 were counted as homeless. 402 were sleeping rough. We need to address homelessness and not kick single parents off their payments and put them on New Start. Because one of the most distressing things we have learned is that since the start of this year, is that housing services and welfare agencies are reporting a spike in the number of single parents with children who are seeking their services. If you have met and spoken to single parents, you understand why. It is because we are predominantly women. many of whom have had experience of family violence. And what we are trying to do is to provide the best life for our kids and for ourselves as we possibly can. We are a group of people amongst all other welfare recipients who want to work and who are trying the hardest to juggle. We do not have spare cash to afford childcare. We cannot necessarily have someone else at the end of the phone in their house who can look after the kids so we can go juggling things like work. Yet the decision was made by the government has meant $140 a week is lost in income for some of us. That is a lot of money when you are the only income earner in your household. As a result, more and more of us are presenting to services saying, we are now at risk of losing our house. We now need to seek support from charity. Today I ask all of you to consider your options this election time. Tony Abbott will force children into desperate living conditions. Despite the Labor Party promising and acknowledging that New Start needs fixing, has done nothing. I am a fighter and I am campaigning for a political party that is standing up for what matters. Adam Bandt from the Greens, the federal MP for Melbourne, has stood up in Parliament demanding the government to change this injustice to women. Even the UN has written to the government declaring the cuts of single parent payment is discriminatory towards women as it affects 90% of sole parents, which are women. This is why I continue to lobby and campaign hard until these cuts are reversed. I have joined the Single Parents Action Group, but this does not deter the fact that I feel beaten down by these changes, and it makes me feel like an inadequate parent, which adds to the stress of being a single parent. Being a parent is the most important job, but it can't be done on New Start. It's impossible. It needs fixing. We need more public housing and affordable rental properties. The number of children that are sleeping rough is increasing, and we need to change that. If we want a more caring society, where we lift people out of poverty traps, the government must increase the dole. The government needs to increase the levels of New Start, and reverse the cuts to single parent payment. We demand that single parents are able to earn more income from part-time work before having their payments cut. We demand that New Start is lifted from below the poverty line to a more sustainable and fair level where people and children have the opportunity to be a part of a healthy society. All children deserve to be a part of a healthy society, and they don't need their educational life subjected to any of these changes which affect their mental health. Thanks. Thank you.
Have been treated appallingly by successive governments, and this impacts our future sustainability as a society through affecting our children. It takes a community to raise a child, and frankly that means taxes to pay for important social services. This is what I found that with all the feedback that we've been getting, a lot of people are saying that we don't deserve the taxes that they work, and we shouldn't be living off their hard-earned dollars. Well, 68% of us are working and we pay taxes. So we do put towards the government, the society, so we do our bit as, sorry, the nerves are hidden. 27% are studying so that they can also get good paying jobs, so that they're not just having to do low paid jobs and never be able to get out of the poverty cycle, which is what single parents want to do for themselves and their kids. They don't want to be welfare reliant. We want to be able to get up and be self-sufficient and have our children to grow up and be self-sufficient also. So next we have Alex from the Greens.
Good morning everyone, and thank you for being here for this incredibly important cause, which is really about the future of Australia, because it's the kids who are the future. I want to talk to you today about delusion and the impact it is having on a significant proportion of children and parents in Australia today, because I believe that actually delusion, a false impression of reality, is the key driver of poverty, in which over 600,000 kids in Australian families find themselves in today. It's a delusion unfortunately shared by both the Liberal and Labor parties, as well as by many policymakers and bureaucrats across government. This inability to grasp the realities facing ordinary Australian families has led to one of the more reprehensible policy decisions in Australia's recent history this year. It's a decision which instantly moved more than 65,000 families around Australia into poverty, instantly, overnight. And poverty is just one of the aspects that are problematic with this decision. On the New Start allowance, with its punitive activity testing and reporting regimes, sole parents are expected to try and find work in a labour market where the workforce is over 50% casualised and where shift work and irregular hours are the norm for entry-level employees. How do you find care for your child when you have to work a night shift at short notice, when you get rung up that afternoon and told to come into work? And for plenty of us, finding childcare at all is an enormous challenge in itself, with waiting lists of 3 to 4 years the norm in many places across Australia. In 2010, as the Rudd government was looking at introducing this last of Howard's recommended welfare reforms, so-called reforms, I read a report analysing the barriers that single parents face when trying to enter the workforce. And the study focused on mental health, drug and alcohol addiction, lack of education, and the incidence of physical disabilities and illness amongst single parents. But not once did it touch on the realities of the labour market that these people are trying to enter, and not once did it mention childcare. The reality is that single parents face real barriers to work, barriers of a structural kind which have nothing to do with their personal deficiencies, as the government thinks. These barriers are things that they have no control over. The reality is that actually regular work with regular consistent pay of the kind that supports a family is actually increasingly rare in this country. Another delusion is the regime of activity testing. Its premise that single parents aren't already substantially engaged in community service and caring activities and work is actually farcical. Probably the greatest delusion of all is that a family might be able to live on less than $450 a week, or $538 in the case of a three-child family. And that somehow it's okay for single-parent families to try and scrape by on incomes of more than $100 a week below the poverty line. And this is in a country with an annual GDP of $1.65 trillion. And then there's the fundamental reality, which somehow escapes our two major parties and government bureaucrats, that children, being children, need care. In 1973, when Bill Hayden introduced the Supporting Mothers Benefit, there was a recognition of this basic fact. The so-called reforms and restructuring of our welfare system are failing to get more single parents into the workforce, and that's a fact. What they are doing is making life much more difficult for single parents, as Bianca and Kerry have shown us today and told us from within their own families. They are directly conflicting with single parents' responsibilities to care for their children. Because the fact is that it's children who are suffering from the reality gap of the major parties. I wanted to end today by reading you a bit of writing from Elspeth McGuinness, who was the convener of the Single Mothers and Their Child Association, organisation, who are here today. And she wrote this in 2001, which is well before the most punitive lot of changes to our welfare system were introduced by John Howard. So in 2001, Elspeth wrote, and I quote, "To return to the kitchen sink, my children are not interested in welfare reform, but they are acutely aware of competing demands on their mother's time. The trade-offs between compulsory paid work activities and the obligations of care presuppose a carefree child. No longer requiring access to parental care, the carefree child rises, eats and attends school by itself, travels home alone, completes its homework and after-school commitments, prepares meals, cleans, washes up, tells itself about its day and puts itself to bed with a hug and a kiss. The carefree child knows the parent would be there if they could be and knows it is important and valued and alone." That's the reality that the delusions of our two major parties are forcing on single-parent families and children around Australia today. The Greens are absolutely committed to turning this reality into a happier one, We want to restore payments to single parent families so you can get on with the work of caring for your children. The most important thing of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I have another someone else that has signed my petition, Carol from Cottles Bridge in Australia. She signed it because so many good, hard-working people are suffering through the high cost of living, electricity, food, goods, fuel, medicine, medical, doctors. Single mums are not all in the same category. Many through the death of a partner or divorce. Others, yes, who use the system. But they need training to get them out of their situation, which is what I discussed earlier. I am not in this category, but I also suffer financial distress due to the cost of living and retirement. With the costs that are going up each month with food and electricity and our payments that were cut, how are we supposed to survive? The stress that has been put on us has just been unbearable. Now we have Kerry Davies from Council of Single Mothers to speak.
Thanks, Kerry. My name's Kerry Davies. I'm the project worker at the Council of Single Mothers and Their Children. The organisation was formed in 1969 by a group of women who were unmarried single mothers and women who, without being married, had found themselves pregnant and been forced to give their children up for adoption. There's been a lot of history around that coming out lately with the apologies from every state in Victoria and from the federal government, at the same time as taking away the benefits for single parents. The benefits that were introduced were really responsible for stopping that culture of women being forced to give away their children, much-loved children that would have been able to stay with their mothers had they been able to support them. It's not just financial. We are culturally shifting back to a time where women are being demonised for wanting to look after their children. We're being told that we should be prioritising full-time paid work over the care of our children, without appropriate childcare available to everyone to even know that those children are being looked after by someone else while at work. It's not good enough. Women and children who survived those forced adoptions have ongoing trauma from that experience. And this is what's going to start happening again. Other people have mentioned women being forced into prostitution. Women are going to be forced to give away babies, and it is not good enough. What we need to do is have a social support system that includes financial support and emotional and practical support for parents to prioritise looking after their children, because without exception, I can say that every single parent I have spoken to who rings our telephone support line, who are my friends, who are my colleagues, who are people I have studied with, they are going to give up a job. They are going to give up their study. They're going to give up everything if it means prioritising the care of their children. So, we have a situation now where people are doing just that. It is the absolute reverse of the government's claims of getting people into work. As has been said by quite a few other speakers, people who are working have been penalised the most harshly financially, with absolutely no benefits to those who weren't working in helping them get these mythical jobs that don't exist. Even the childcare that's so hard to get is only for a brief couple of hours before and after school. This doesn't include nighttime work, shift work of any kind, and the kind of low-skilled jobs that a lot of single parents need to do while they're studying, or because they've been out of the workforce so long that they can't get a more professional position. Cleaning offices, working in hospitality, so many women do these jobs so that they can look after their families properly, and if they don't have any family support, those children are left on their own at night, because that's the way it has to be. At the Council of Single Mothers and Their Children, we recently sent a list of questions to the major political parties The answers to those questions are on our website, which is csmc.org.au. The Coalition didn't respond, unsurprisingly. The Labor Party and the Greens have responded, and I would encourage and welcome any other political party or candidate to go onto our website, find those questions and respond to them. If you can do that before the election, we will certainly post a response on our website as well, because if single mothers want to inform their vote for this election, they can go and read those responses. I would also like to say, again, to address the cultural problem that we're having at the moment. There is no change in how many hours work women have to do if they are parenting alone. So there is an acknowledgement that people who are single parents can only work a certain amount of hours a week because they need to have time to care for their children appropriately. This was simply a cash grab. It was only a few bucks anyway in terms of how big our budget actually is. And the long-term savings are not going to play out because of the effects that this is going to have. We definitely need New Start allowance to be increased, not only for single parents but for everybody. I know single people who don't have children who can't afford to pay rent on New Start allowance. How on earth is someone who needs that extra bedroom or two going to survive? Rents have skyrocketed. It is not as simple as moving out further and further and further, as so many single parents have done. The media are constantly asking us for wonderful people to talk to, and I have a list, as long as all of our arms put together, of women who are willing to talk to the media, but the media aren't willing to go and talk to them because they live in the far outer suburbs or the regional areas of Victoria. And the media keeps saying, you keep recirculating the same people over and over again, no one needs someone new. Well, the reality is that because the rents have been skyrocketing and because people's financial resources have been going down, these people aren't in Melbourne anymore, and they are now out in outer suburbs or in regional Victoria with less money, no cars, no jobs out there either, and no way of supporting their families. So all people are doing is prioritising scrimping and cutting back and cutting back. There is no future for people who are doing that. There is no hope. There is no way of those people becoming active and contributing members of this community if they are constantly thinking about what they have to save and cut back. They are not able to take part as they should be, and neither are their children. I would like to also acknowledge that there is so much intersectionality. There are so many things that intersect for single parents. Every single parent's experience is unique, but some of these barriers that have been mentioned that are common do affect us all. But there are so many people who have no family support. There are people who have plenty of family support and they think, what are these people complaining about? I don't think anyone has a concept of how lonely and how desperate it can get when you are the only adult who is not only financially responsible, but again, emotionally responsible and practically responsible for your children's needs, without a break, without any babysitting assistance because you can't afford formal assistance, and once children are 12 there isn't any formal assistance, and no family or friends to call on in that situation. Some of the people who are in that desperate situation are actually there because they have suffered serious abuse at the hands of the children's father, and it has meant that they have had to isolate themselves for their safety. These are not people nobody cares about or nobody loves. These are people, again, who have had to shut down in some ways parts of their life so that they and their children can survive. There are people who are not receiving any child support, again, financial assistance, or any reliable practical or emotional support for their children from those children's other parent. And these people are facing even bigger barriers to then go out and work, or study, or any of those things. There will always be people in our community, not just single parents, but for all sorts of reasons. There will always be people in our community who are going to need financial support. It's the least we can give them. Thanks. I'd like to finish by saying that this fight isn't over. Thank you everyone who has come and all the people who do keep coming to these rallies. It is really important to continue, and we all know that there are so few people every time because they are the very women I was just talking about. They can't come, and they know that we're here for them, and the more we keep coming out, the more they will know that, and the more we will be able to affect positive change. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. I've got Mary from Penmont. She's saying that Australia's future is its children. How true is that? Our future are single-parent children as well. They deserve the dignity to be able to live an enjoyable life with security, to be able to go to the movies and the holidays with their friends, to be able to go to a birthday party and simply be able to buy a present for their, for their friends. Poverty prevents access to housing and employment and health, especially dental health. Poverty leads to insecure housing, overcrowding and family violence. Leaders should address this issue as a priority. We can't say it any simpler. Tony Abbott and Kevin Rudd need to address welfare as a priority. Kate Borland will now talk to you about public housing.
Thanks everyone for being here today. I'm actually wearing a few different hats. I'm not only a single parent, I'm one of the success stories of being a single parent and escaping a relationship that was a very abusive relationship that's still abusive to this day. I'm a single mother of 2 children, a 12-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter. I started a university degree on a single parenting pension and was able to finish that university degree because of public housing. The single parenting pension allowed me to do these things. It allowed me to leave the relationship. It allowed me to go back to university to be able to impart what I've learnt in the communities that I work in. I am a nutritionist in the drug and alcohol sector. Through doing my university degree, I'm now lucky. The hours I work are within school hours. I get to dictate what days I work and how many hours I work per day. Last year we won an award, a national award for the treatment in drug services and excellence in drug services and treatment. That program, the nutrition side of it, I wrote, and every time I go to work, I am honest. I say, I am a living example of what and how you can change your life and live to tell the truth. I had to work with a group of people this week, and I was working with a new staff member because we're about to start a forensic program, the same program that I've already been doing. The worker has come from the Salvation Army, and I'm no one to criticise, but I knew she was gobsmacked when she heard me speak to that group, because I told them the truth. I told them honestly about what I'd been through, and that I was no different, and I was not standing there to lecture them or to tell them what to do. But I was standing there because I was proud of where I'd come from and how I'd managed to change the things that I'd been through in my life. Through being a single parent, I was also able to become housed in public housing. When I first moved into public housing, I was embarrassed and ashamed. We lived right near the school. I used to push my kids out the door, down the stairs as the parents in Mercedes-Benz drove past, looking at us as if you live in public housing. I'm now standing here today, the proudest public housing tenant that you will ever meet. Public housing is a beautiful place to live. It is a community, and it means that my son this week goes to Canberra with the school, carrying my Save Public Housing banner to say to the politicians in Canberra that public housing, we need to retain it. It is currently in the position where it is being privatised. Public land is being given away. We are seeing it given away at a rate of knots. Public homes, public properties given away, privatised. Where have we seen privatisation work in Australia? Can anyone tell me where it's worked? It does not work. It just means that the big corporations are going to make more money off our hard-earned dollars. The single parenting pension, the fact that it's been lost today, is an absolute disgrace. Women should be allowed to live and be looked after. Since when did this world change? Since when were women allowed to not feel safe? Women are not feeling safe as single parents, single fathers. I'm not saying it's just a single woman issue. It is a single male issue as well. Single fathers, many beautiful males today. Stand up. We all need to look after each other. I am not listening to what Canberra's telling me anymore, what America is telling me, how we're turning back the refugees, how we're privatising everything. I think it is a shame and a disgrace. And I think that everybody that's got breath in their body needs to start getting out and speaking out. If you have got something that you have struggled through, depression keeps us locked indoors. Why are we staying locked indoors? Because no one is there to look after us. All the services are closed down. Public housing's now being handed over to the not-for-profit sector. Men in suits, property developers that are building housing off the NRAS scheme from the government. They are given money to build community and social housing. This community and social housing, you have to be on a low income to even get a look in. $50,000 a year you have to earn before you will be eligible to be housed. It is ridiculous and it is crazy what's going on. We need to retain public housing. Every single party supports the community and social housing sector. We now have a terminology in which in Western Australia social housing is called public housing. This is going through in the media. This is a complete and utter lie. Social housing is not public housing. Public housing is owned and maintained by the government. We pay taxes. Tenants pay taxes for their homes. If you've lived in a public housing property for 30 years, you have paid off a mortgage as far as I'm concerned. Your rent has paid a mortgage on that property. And yet we are seeing tenants living in fear, being told that that rental doesn't amount to nothing. If you have 2 bedrooms, you should be living in 1 bedroom. What about the politicians that have holiday houses? They pay to go on holidays every year. What about the people that are working hard that have none of this? They are there supporting the system that is saying that they have no rights. Here is the folder with everything, my university degree, my counselling, my public housing tenancy, my job descriptions, the letters I wrote that I was sent back to myself 2 years later. How are you going to change your life? What are you going to do? It's all here in this folder. My children are proud of me. I'm proud of everybody I work with. I don't care what colour you are, where you come from, you're part of my community in Australia. This country is going to rack and ruin. We need to stop this now. We all need to stick together. It's the only way. Start looking after your community, everybody. Do live in hope. Do not watch the television with all the bad news. Start acting rather than living shut down with fear. I believe in hope and I have it, and that's what I act from. Every single thing I do is from hope. So I'd like to say, beautiful to hear Bianca, beautiful to hear everyone speaking here today. Kerry's worked on this tirelessly since it happened at Christmas. I get no support from the government anymore. As I say, I'm lucky. I share the money I've got. If I can give it away, that's what I do. Money means nothing. It doesn't buy us happiness, but it buys our children the same things that the rich people can have for their children, and our children deserve those same things. So thank you, everybody, and vote 1. Hate Burland, save public housing, because once it's gone and privatised, we have lost it